It's been a busy off-season for the St. Louis Blues, including the use of 2 offer sheets, a little bit different approach. Haley Taylor-Simon of Locked On Blues is here to discuss the upcoming season and what we can expect in St. Louis. All that and more next on the Locked On NHL Podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor-Simon. And Haley, it's been a very eventful offseason for the Blues. Let's start with the 2 offer sheets because that is a little outside the box maneuver here by the Blues. What were your thoughts about the offer sheets and why did they take this approach?
I was a little surprised about it too. It was something that kind of shocked me, but Doug Armstrong, GM of the St. Louis Blues, did kind of insinuate that something might be coming like this, so I wasn't overly shocked. However, I think that this approach, we don't see it often, right? This was the 11th and 12th since 1998, given out. So I think that this approach, though, it was strategic and it was smart. Doug Armstrong knew that Stan Bowman and the Edmonton Oilers wouldn't be able to match. I mean, they potentially could have matched Holloway, but Broberg, I don't think they were going to touch that at all. So I think it was a smart approach. You got 2 first-round draft picks for very little you gave away. You gave away prospect Paul Fisher, who was a defenseman. You gave away that 2nd round and that 3rd round, and that was it. So it was strategic, it was smart, and it got them to St. Louis.
And how do they fit in with the Blues? What roles do you expect Broberg and Holloway to play this season and beyond?
Yeah, so I feel like there's a lot of pressure kind of put on these 2 players, right? The whole NHL is going to be looking at them and saying, is this a fail? Was this successful? I think that let's go talk about Broberg. I think on the defense, he's going to definitely elevate the defense. 2nd pair, maybe. 3rd pair, wouldn't be surprised. Holloway, on the other hand, I think that he's going to fit in very well in that 3rd line. I wouldn't say that he's a top 6 guy yet. While he was impressive with the Edmonton's run in the playoffs, especially that goal against the Canucks, I talk about that all the time. That was a beauty 5-hole. But I think that he's just not that developed yet to confidently say, hey, we're going to make him a top 6 player. Not to say that he can't achieve that, but I think that they're going to fit in as playmakers, right? Broberg is really good on the power play defensively, and Holloway, he has speed and he's really good at puck possession and control. So I think they're going to elevate. However, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're going to be, really significantly improving the defense and the offense.
Those 2 offer sheets made the biggest headlines, but what were some of the other moves that you were pleased with or unhappy with that took place this offseason?
Ryan Suter, 100%. So with Suter, I'm sure you've heard about him too, about how he might be problematic in the locker rooms, and you're bringing this guy on defense who doesn't always have the best reputation. Now, I know in Dallas they liked him, so I did a crossover with Locked On Stars just to kind of see how they were feeling. And they said that he was better with the Stars players, but it made me a little bit nervous. But again, I think it's actually a strong move. Another move that happened is the uncertainty of Torrey Krug, who is one of our defensemen. We don't have any update yet on if he's going to be getting the surgery or not, but right now he's indefinitely out. So it did make sense that, Armstrong did get Suter, a veteran defenseman. Another thing that happened this offseason that I found quite interesting was the Joseph brothers, right? It's a feel-good story to have both of them on the Blues. However, I do think P.O. Joseph is the stronger of the 2 brothers. I know they both play different positions, but I do feel like he has more of an opportunity to get some more time on ice defensively. And then, this was kind of like swept under the rug because it was during the NHL draft. I know I was in my hotel room writing about this and getting ready to do an episode on it. they got Texier from the Columbus Blue Jackets, who is a promising center. So I think that the Blues did make some good moves, and then they got Foxa. They did a lot, okay? But I think the biggest moves obviously was the offer sheets. But if you had to give me the second biggest, I would definitely say it's the uncertainty of Torrey Krug and Hal Armstrong kind of brought in some new talent just in case.
Talk to me a little bit about Jordan Binnington. I mean, he shined at times last year, kind of carried the Blues, kept them in contention. Can he do that again? And can he be more consistent?
Yeah, so Jordan Binnington had a great season last season, one of his best seasons since the Cup win season. I like to call it that because it's what happened. But yeah, his rookie season was unbelievable, and last season was unbelievable. Do I think he can do that again? That's putting a lot of pressure on Binner. I think that this season we did see him kind of take more of a mature approach in net, no outbursts or anything like that, which to some of you might be like, Haley, that's like the normal when it comes to goalies. But with Binner, he gets a little bit of a temper. So for me, I was happy to see him kind of grow up in a way. And I think also him knowing that he has to mentor a young Joel Hofer, who is his backup goalie, kind of contributes to that. You know, he got married last offseason. He had a lot of real life things happen to him that I think did impact how he plays on the ice. And I think that we see a really mature Jordan Binnington in net. Now, again, last season, incredible season. Like statistically, I believe that he was ranked the 10th best goalie statistically with how he performed last season. So it's not just me being biased, being a Blues fan. This is me just being a fact person that he did stand out amongst the NHL in terms of goalies. This upcoming season, I don't expect him to play maybe as many games. And no, do not be concerned. This is not him getting ready to leave. He still has a couple years left on his contract. But I believe they're going to put Joel Hofer in net a little bit more to kind of give Binner that rest time. So I would still say, based off of last season, I expect him to have a good season. It just may not be as good as a season.
That's a pretty tough level to duplicate,
Yeah.
no doubt. Training camp is coming up really soon. What, in your mind, are the biggest questions facing the Blues as camp gets underway?
It's a good question. So, because I've had a lot of questions myself. So, obviously, the Blues brought in a bunch of players, which means, hey, we're not going to be able to fit everybody in this lineup come opening night. So, this is going to be a very competitive training camp. However, there is one player named Dvorsky, who was one of our first round picks in last year's draft, that feels pretty confident that he's going to make the team this season. I really like him. He's one of my favorite players. I have talked about him numerous times on Locked On Blues, kind of saying, hey, he needs to give this a shot, and he finally is. But I think there's going to be a lot of competition. So I want to see how Dvorsky is going to do. Do I think he's going to make the team? Yes. I don't think they're going to send him down in any way. However, though, there is that fourth line, and you have a guy like Nathan Walker. They extended him for 2 years last season. While he is a player that's very likable, a player that I like a lot, do I think that he's going to necessarily make opening night? I don't know. And that's the thing. I think some of these veteran players got a little comfortable, and it's not saying that they're lazy. It's just there's younger and faster skaters out there. So I think with training camp this year, we're not going to see the same, going through the motions. We're going to see some real competition. And again, this is for the defensive side too. You have Scott Perunovich, who got a 1-year contract extension, which I was kind of surprised about too. And then you also have Tyler Tucker, you have a Matthew Kessel. There is so much competition and only so many spots. So the only thing that I'm sure of is the goalies. I'm sure that Binner will be the starter and Joel Hofer will be the backup. Other than that, there's so much unknown. I'm even going through scenarios where Captain Braden Shen may not even be on the second line center. He might be dropping down to the third line center, which is something that maybe doesn't make sense to some people. But I think there's just so much talent on this team now that you have to kind of figure out where you put these extra bodies.
Well, competition is a good thing. Hopefully iron sharpens iron, as they say. Haley, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Absolutely. So you can find Locked On Blues on YouTube at Locked On Blues, on Twitter, same thing too, at Locked On Blues. And you can find me on Twitter at Haley T. Simon, talking all things hockey.
All right, Haley, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And look, this is a great time of year for betting on FanDuel. You could find all kinds of great things to bet on. You've got hockey futures, you've got college football, pro football, the baseball pennant races are heating up. So look at all the latest odds at FanDuel.com. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.